I can do some shout outs. Today, I'm really excited for this one because it's rare that you get to interview somebody that has a patent, let alone has over 25 patents, looks like you, let alone, is a woman in tech, a black woman in tech. I have 3 daughters, so to see somebody that's representing them in this industry is powerful. Yeah, I'm excited for this interview. Yeah, let me go ahead and introduce her so I can let her talk and I can be quiet. We have Senior Director of Developer Relations at Apply Tools, a leader in education and test automation, an international keynote speaker, an inventor with 26 patents currently, probably in counting. Has previously worked at Twitter and IBM, the owner of Angie Jones Tech, angiejones.tech, and which is a pretty dope site, so make sure y'all check it out. She's a HBCU graduate and no other than Angie Jones. What's good? I'm doing great. How are you? Turn up. Friday, yes. So, Angie, let's start it off with the question that everybody probably has. You have 26 patents. Like, how did you even get started on the patent journey? Hold on, Angie. Okay, we got you. Somehow it's saying you're muted. I can see you talking. Say something real quick. Yeah. Yeah, I hear you and I see it coming through the stream, but they saying they can't hear you. Let's see. No, it's not your end. It's on my end probably. Let me see. Talk again? Nope. All right, let's see. All right. We gotta try this again. All right, hold on. Let me see. Nah, it ain't my headphones because let's see. Input. They said they had it for a second. Yes, they can hear. Can they hear you now? All right, let's try this again. All right. What about now? Can I hear you? Call the help desk. We need tech support. All right. How about now? Can it? Go ahead, Andrew.
Testing 1, 2, 3.
Kev on tech support. What's good, family? Can y'all hear?
Oh, they do. Okay, they said they do.
We in the building. Let's go. We back at it. We back at it. What's good? All right. After technical difficulties, we have Angie Jones here. Thank you for your patience, Angie.
Yeah, no problem.
All right. Let's take this from the top. How'd you get started in tech?
Yeah. So that's not what you asked me. You asked me how did I get started with the patents?
Right.
Okay. So, yeah, so my first tech job out of college was IBM. And IBM, they're like the leader in patents, like every year. So it's a very innovative company. You know, they really promote innovation within the company, although there's only a very, very small percentage of the employees who actually go as far as to create patents from the work that they're doing, right? Most people, you know, they're doing the innovative piece, but it's just in, you know, their products and they, you know, leave it at that. What got me started, you've heard the phrase, I'm sure, representation matters, right?
Yep.
I'm going to tell you how true this is. So I was walking down the halls at IBM, and this is back in the day when everybody had their own office. There was no like open space floor plans or anything like that. So there was a Black woman, and in her office, I saw a plaque on the wall. And so I went in, I introduced myself, and I asked her, you know, I went in to introduce myself, not about the plaque, but I went in and introduced myself, seeing another Black woman. And while we were chatting, I saw the plaque on her wall. So I asked, like, what's this? And she said that she, you know, she had a software patent. I just thought that was the coolest thing ever. Like, I never met anybody with a software patent, let alone a Black woman. So I was just so inspired. And I asked her, how did you, you know, how did you do this? How did you go about getting this? And look what she did. She didn't just sit there and explain it to me. She said, do you want to do a brainstorming session and come up with something together? And I'm like, yeah, of course. So, you know, we scheduled some time, we got together, and she kind of walked me through the process. And that was like very early in my career, like year 1 or 2. And I think year 1 in my career. And that just really stood out to me, not just the whole patent piece, but the representation matters part, the part about, you know, not just providing someone with, you know, info, but taking them by the hand and leading them through the door, right? And so we got together and kind of, you know, discussed how to look at the work that you're doing and find the innovations, find the novelty. What How did you solve this problem in a way that no one else has or no one else has thought about? And then IBM had a patent program, which many tech companies do. You probably don't know about them because, you know, it's not something everybody talks about. But most tech companies will have a patent program where, you know, IBM paid all of the legal fees. They had IP attorneys. You know, I would write up my idea and maybe like a 1 or 2 page, you know, little doc, and they would turn this into a 25-page document and, you know, submit it to the US Patent Office, pay for everything as well as pay me as the inventor of the idea. And so I would get money for just submitting to the patent office, and I would get more money if it was accepted, and then more money if it was like utilized or licensed or involved in some type of litigation or trading or anything like that. So once I saw like this was a way to make some passive income as well as a way to kind of make my mark in the tech industry, I became hooked. And so it got to a point where, you know, I wasn't just sitting down and like brainstorming sessions anymore, but patents are essentially some novel solution to problems. And so I started just kind of going through my everyday life and recognizing problems that could do with a solution. So then I would think, how would I go about solving this?
There's a lot to unpack with what you just said.
I know. I stopped. I was about to say more. I didn't give him too much too soon.
Right. You over here giving them some of mama's cooking real early. You know what
Right,
I'm talking about? All right. What I think is really dope is that, you know, not only did she, when you asked her on how do you get a patent, but she actually bring you in like, okay, let me show you how this is done and let's do it together. I think we need more, like you said, representation of people that not only will give you the game, but put you in the game.
Exactly. I saw a tweet today that was really good, and it said about how a lot of newer folks to the industry, they're frustrated because it's hard to get that first job. And they've done everything that we've told them to do. So we told them, take the courses, we told them, build your portfolio out. And they've done all of that, and they still cannot get inside of the door. And that tweet said, okay, we need less of that, and we need more of folks sponsoring people, and you open the door for them, you bring them inside of the door. And I wholeheartedly agree with that.
Yes, I totally agree with that as well. On top of that, I know a lot of people that have ideas, and when they have these ideas, they feel like they have to go it alone. What you just mentioned about many companies, like I work for Cisco and we have a patent program, and it's something I always thought about, but it's kind of like I didn't really understand it. And the way you just broke it down about the brainstorming issues, and then you have a group of people, you all kind of brainstorm on some ideas and then put them together to create that patent. The question I have though is that how do you find out? Well, I think I know what you're going to say, but I'm sure someone else has this question. How do you find out if your idea is even patent worthy, or if there's already an existing patent for that idea?
Yeah. So that's really your company's responsibility to determine that, right? So the way it worked at IBM, I don't know, it might be something similar at Cisco and other tech companies, but the way it worked was, you had an idea, you're not sure if it's, patentable or not. You do your due diligence in finding out if it's been done before, right? And by due diligence, maybe like a 30-minute Google search. Google also has a domain specific to patents. It's called patents.google.com. And so you can go there as well to search, and that way you're kind of in the space that you're looking for. But it doesn't have to just be something that's already a patent. If somebody else has talked about it, if they thought about it and written it down somewhere, then that kind of it's no longer fair game for a patent, right? You didn't come up with it. So doing a little bit of regular Google search, and then go on Google Patents a little bit, about 30 minutes to an hour search to determine is this out there, right? And so that's one of the questions the company will ask. Is there any, they call it prior art? Is there any prior art here already? So you might say look, this was the problem I was solving. Here's some other solutions to it, but it's not the same as mine. Mine is superior because of XYZ, right? So you do your due diligence, but then the legal team, they have access to all kinds of other tools, LexisNexis has an entire database that helps lawyers search through cases and stuff like this or whatever. So they'll do the more thorough search to find out if there's anything there. Sometimes they'll present that to you, here's some that's close. What do you think? Sometimes it's dead in the water, and you say, oh yeah, that's my idea right there. And whatever, you just don't get married to these ideas. That's the key. If anybody's going to pursue this, don't get married to the ideas. I had to learn that very early, because you're so excited and you think this is going to be the big thing that, gonna change change the world forever. And it's like, girl, somebody thought about that 5 years ago. It's like, oh.
Right. You out here hyped in the mud it's about to go down. Out here Saudi. All right. I got a super chat from Michael Furlow. Thank you for the super chat. Said great information. Thank you. Shout out to Keep It Techie. Everybody that's joining, if you have your questions, please drop them in the chat. I got a question here from K Reed. Should you patent your business name?
No, so okay, so patents are you're thinking about something like a trademark or something like that, right? So patents are more like solutions to problems, right? And I'll give an example because I think that'll make it clear. Is that okay?
Sure.
I'll give an example of one of mine. So, and this is a nice way to help you kind of think of ideas and stuff too. So, like I said, I kind of go through my everyday life, and if I feel triggered, bothered, frustrated at all about anything, automatically this triggers something in my brain that says, how would you solve it? Right. And if I come up with something that's novel and innovative, then I know I'm on to something that it might be patentable. So, here's an example. I'm in the grocery store, and I got my basket. I only have a few things, and all the lines are crowded. You don't know which line to get in. All of them long, right? So you're trying to figure out which one is the shortest line. You get in the one that you think is going to move the fastest or is moving the fastest, right? So you get in that line, and what happens? Inevitably, you got in the wrong line, right? The one next to you is moving much faster, and now you're pissed because you picked the wrong line and you're in a hurry. So that's just a very small frustration in my life that while I'm standing in this long line, I might as well try to think of a pattern. How would I solve this? Okay. So then I'm standing there and I'm thinking, how would I know how long each one of these lines would take? How can I use tech to solve this problem? All right. So what about, we could easily use something. Technology probably already exists. I know it exists now, but at that time I'm thinking probably already exists, where if I put items in a cart, it recognizes those items, right? So if you have something that recognizes the items, it knows like, okay, how many items is in there. It knows if there's produce or something that's going to take a lookup code versus something that you can scan. So it can start using this information to say, it'll take about this amount of time to scan these items. That's not enough. That's a little bit, right? So how can I make this even better? And this is the part where you can start collaborating with other people in your company or, friends or something and say, here's an idea I have. How can we strengthen it? So then I start thinking, all right, that's a little bit, but there's other factors in play. Like what about the cashier? Some of them cashiers are slow. Now, I used to be a cashier as my job in high school, right? I was star cashier because I used to be whipping that line. So that's a factor for my line, right? It's going to be faster. So let's take the cashier scan rate. And I know that exists because that's how I got to be cashier of the month all the time, because we can tell you scan this amount of items per hour or something, right? Okay, so great. We can factor that into the equation. What's some other things that hold up a line? Somebody want the cashier to go get cigarettes, right? So if you got a smoker in a line, you know that from their loyalty card. They always buy cigarettes. So we could tap into who this customer is, not just the items they have, but their loyalty, their behavior. So they're gonna want to get cigarettes. Old girl behind us gonna want a fifth of Jack. So that's gonna mean the cashier gotta go get that. Somebody want lotto tickets. They always buy lotto tickets on Fridays. Factor that into the equation. This person pays with a check. This person is gonna pay with cash. So what are these things? How long do they take? Factor all of that stuff together, and you have a pretty good estimate of, based on who's in the line and what they have, how quickly this line is going to move. So then you can project those times above each one of the lines, and I can see as soon as I walk up, this one's going to take 5 minutes, this one's going to take 10 minutes. Let me get in the 5-minute line. Once I get there, the time automatically changes based on how long it's going to take to check me out, right? And so submit that, and that's a patentable idea.
That's dope. Now, it's the idea that you patent. You don't actually have to create the app.
Bingo. So it's the idea and the blueprint on how to implement that idea, right? So you can't just say, like I couldn't say, why don't y'all just show us how long it takes to do it, right? You have to go into detail about how one would implement this. You essentially write in a design manual. So I would say you need to use this type of technology to be able to read the items from the cart. You need to use this type of technology to read the loyalty stuff, da 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 da. So you're giving them like the recipe for it, but you don't have to implement it or build that thing.
I think that could be something that catches a lot of people up. They're so focused on creating that thing rather than just getting the idea out there. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
For is what is the cost to create a patent? I know you've done them in your organization, but if someone wants to, if someone has an idea and they want, and their company doesn't fund a patent, how much is it to actually do it themselves?
Yeah. So they're pretty expensive. The patent itself, just to submit it to the patent office and pay them, is like 25,000 bucks. You gotta also, well, it ranges. It depends on like a lot of different factors, like your country and a couple of things. But me at the time, it was like 25 bucks a pop. Um, 25 bucks. Is that what I said? $25,000.
Right.
Did I say that
You said
first?
that the
Oh,
first
okay.
time. Yep.
All right, all right. 25. Everybody better be like, oh, I got 100 on it. No, $25,000, and that's just for that. Now they could reject the patent, and you're out of $25,000, right? So it's no guarantee. Also, they take forever. Like some of my patents took like 8 years before they were actually issued, right? The idea is like not even all that valuable anymore by the time they issue it, but you have some protection while it's like patent pending. You'll see that on people's products,
Right.
patent pending,
Right.
right? So you have some protection there. You gotta, well, you don't have to, but it's a good idea to have a patent lawyer who can write it up in all of those legal terms and, get all your legal diagrams and stuff together. So that's more money. I don't know how much they cost, but that's more money involved in that. That's why I really liked going through the company. And also I didn't really have a choice. If you check on like some of your IP agreements you sign when you join these companies, usually they're saying we own anything that you think of while you're employed here, right? And so there were a couple of people who wanted to patent things outside of the company and do it on their own, but you had to go through like the legal team and essentially get permission to seek that on your own. And sometimes even if they didn't want it, they was, you basically probably got to give them the first right of refusal. And even if they didn't want it, sometimes they still wouldn't want you to patent it because maybe it's a conflict for them or something like that. So it's kind of tricky to be able to do it on your own if you're employed somewhere.
Yeah, that's one of the questions I had. If you have this idea and you work for an organization and you want to get it patent, um, let's start the first way. Let's say you work for an organization and you do a patent, right? With the organization. Who owns the patent? Do you own it? Do they own it? Who gets paid for it? Who gets the bag?
The company gets the bag. The
Mm.
company, all my patents are technically owned by companies, but I'm listed as the inventor, and that's part of like that patent program type of thing. So they'll pay me, if anyone license it or anything like that, but they own it. So if they wanted to sell it, for example, to another company or something like that, they can do that without any permissions from me or anything. So technically they own it. So nice to own your own stuff, but
Right,
then also you got to pay all the upfront investments and stuff to do that.
right, right. So do you have like a patent wall where all your patent plaques are?
All of them are in a box. I moved, but I should get
Womp
that
womp
set
womp.
up. When I was working there and I had my office, they were all over the wall. Like people would come in, it's like, damn. But yeah, I might pull them back out.
I seen I was on a meeting and this guy that I work with, and his whole back wall was nothing but patent plaques. And I'm like, yo, how the heck did he do that? But after talking to you, I kind of understand. But
Mm-hmm.
I was just amazed by how many plaques he had. It's crazy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's dope.
Yeah, you gotta do it for the gram or something. Put up, you know what I mean? Just something that's gonna go viral. You gotta go ahead and do that.
I know, huh? They might put me in a little article or something. I
Yeah,
might do that. I might put it up. I'm still kind of, I moved not to like end of last year. So some things are still in boxes, but I might throw that up.
I understand. All right, we got a super chat from Corey Clay. Thank you for the super chat. It says, "Hi, Mrs. Jones. She was one of my instructors at Durham Tech in Durham, NC."
Who's this?
It says Corey Clay. She
Hey, Corey.
she told me to look into coding. I went the networking route. Shout out to Corey for going the networking route. Now get into the coding route and combine the two to do network automation.
Well, I'm proud of you, Corey.
Now, speaking of getting into the coding route, you are a HBCU graduate, but from what I was reading, you went to school for business. What got you into software engineering?
Yeah. All right. So I grew up, I didn't know anything about coding. I didn't know that was a thing, right? I didn't know anything about computers really. We didn't have one. I definitely didn't know that this was a field. And so once I graduated from high school, I went to Tennessee State University in Nashville, Tennessee. And I didn't know what I wanted to do in my life. Like I literally had no clue, not an inkling of what I wanted to do for my career. So I needed to elect a major. I just chose business because I figured it was broad enough that whatever I decide I want to do, it would still be kind of applicable,
Right.
right? So that's what I entered as. But my father was an accountant at the time, and he saw like, yo, people starting to pull these computers out everywhere. Like, I think you need to at least take a class so you know how to use it, because no matter what you do, and this was like very early internet days, right? So everybody didn't have like computers, definitely didn't have laptops. We didn't even have cell phones back then. This is how long ago this was. But Pops peeped game and saw what was going on, and he's like, take one of these little computer courses so you know how to work one when you figure out what you're going to do with yourself, basically. So me not knowing anything, I enroll in a C++ programming course.
Hmm.
I don't know any better, right? I'm sure he meant take like keyboard or like PowerPoint or Excel or something like that, but I don't know. So I enrolled in C++, and I loved it. I loved it. It was
Hmm.
so much fun. Um, and so I really took a liking to it, and I was doing really well. And like I said, back then we didn't have our own personal computers. So I would get my homework assignment, I would run to the computer lab on campus. And I wanted to work on my Corey. I bet you didn't work on your homework right away. I worked on my homework right away. As soon as class was over, I couldn't wait to go and write this code. So the professor, he saw, I liked it, I was doing well at it, and he asked me like, because he knew which students were CS students, because he was an advisor and stuff like that. So he's like, "You're not in the CS program, are you?" I said, "No, I'm a business major." And he was like, "Why aren't you in the CS program?" I was like, "I don't know. I don't even know what you're talking about. I don't know what y'all do." And he's like, "We do this, like write programs and stuff." I was like, "Oh, bet this is really cool." So he encouraged me to change my major, and I did. So I went on and graduated with bachelor's in computer science.
Hmm.
Even went on to get my master's in computer science. So, yeah, I was hooked.
That's a blessing that usually when your parents tell you something, we don't listen.
Yeah.
It's a blessing that you actually was like, well, let me check this out, and then was actually inspired and gravitated to it. So that's dope.
Yeah, no, my dad, may he rest in peace. My
Mm.
dad was like the smartest person that ever knew, right? So if he says something, I'm like, okay, yes, sir.
Yeah.
So I'm really glad that he had that insight and directed me towards that path.
Rest in peace to Pops and happy Father's Day
Yes,
to all the
yes,
dope
yes.
dads out there. All right. Um, the question I have though about being in a HBCU, and this is something that I want to get involved with, is what is the tech space like for someone that wants to go to a HBCU? I never really hear about people coming out of those colleges and getting into tech. I'm sure it happens, and it's probably happens, and I'm just, since I don't scroll my timeline, I'm probably missing it. I don't want to, disregard anybody that is getting it, but what have you seen? What do you know about it?
Yeah, good question. I'm gonna tell you, I didn't know tech was the way it was until I entered tech and went to get my master's. So I got my master's at a PWI. And the reason I didn't know this stuff is because that doesn't exist at the HBCU, right? So even teaching at Durham Tech, when I went to get my master's, like most of the classes were filled with males. At the PWI, well, even at Durham Tech, so most of them were white males. And you kind of feel intimidated as a woman. When I was doing my master, I was literally like the only woman in most of my courses, right? I think I might have had like one or two courses that had another woman in it, but most of them were all male. So that's really, really intimidating. Then you enter the field, same thing. But when I started this at the HBCU, okay, my class was probably like 50-50 in male versus female. Everybody in the joint is black. So you can't, and none of us know what we're doing, right? So nobody was tinkering with computers at the age of 2. Nobody's coming in like, oh, I don't even know why I'm in this course. I already know everything. Like nobody has that vibe or attitude. So we're all kind of struggling together. We're all uplifting each other. We're doing homework together. It was a totally different learning experience than what I've seen and heard from other people who do not go to an HBCU to study this. So mostly everybody I think graduated and stuff like that. Also, while I was there, fortunately, some companies who have their acts together will recruit from more than just Stanford and those types of schools. So we would have folks that came in, specifically IBM came in. They went to our computer science department head and said, hey, give me like your 4 top students, right? And so it's me, 3 other people, and they put together this program, IBM did, to say, we want you all to work on this, and that way they'll give you like some industry type experience. So we were working on things that they like, the tech stacks they needed at these jobs and stuff like that. So we were learning like some very, very valuable skills that you don't necessarily get taught in the college. And then that's how that led to, the job and stuff. Also, the classes are much smaller. So my class, each class was like 30 or less people. So you're not in these huge, kind of university courses that we see at some of the PWI. So you get that one-on-one attention from the instructors. And then also career center gonna be looking out for you and stuff like that. I had 3 internships while in undergrad. I worked at Boeing twice and I worked at IBM. So this is beautiful things to put on your resume. One of my instructors stayed back for the summer and said, hey, I'm gonna do a Java boot camp. Anybody want to get certified in Java, don't go home for the summer, stay here with me and I'm gonna get you good. And he did, right? And so we stayed for the summer. You talk about you graduate from college and you already certified, and like back then that Java was it, right? The people who work at the companies didn't know Java because this was like brand new hot tech. So you coming in as a new grad and you like, yeah, I'm certified in Java. What y'all need help with? So it just makes you very marketable. So I really, really thank God for my HBCU experience. It really set me up for success. So when people try to discredit HBCUs, I'm like, nah, that's bull. Look at me. I'm a HBCU product, and I have friends, my classmates, they're still in the tech space as well.
Hmm. Okay. You pause. I want to know if you was done or.
Yeah, no, I'm done. Go
Okay.
ahead.
Okay. Okay. I love to hear that because, like the HBCUs get a bad rap for a lot of. I don't know why. You know what I mean? And I love to hear that your experience was what it was, and this you still have people that are in the industry getting it. Now the question I have is, with the way everything is changing, would you recommend somebody go to college to get in software engineering, or would you recommend them to learn on their own?
Mm. All right. So this is a challenging one. I recommend people do what's best for them.
Mm,
I'm the type, you know, I needed some guidance, right? I wasn't disciplined enough. I don't see how people do it on their own. Like, I have all praise and respect to people who do this on their own, because it's hard. Like, anytime I'm learning something, I got questions. I want to ask the expert. You know what I mean? So for people like myself who, you're not as disciplined to like do it yourself and guide yourself, then yeah, I recommend going to college. Also, let's be honest, it's going to give you an advantage in applying for jobs. There's still so many jobs that's, asking you for that degree or saying that it's a requirement, right? And it's kind of a way to weed people out, unfortunately. Now, that being said, I definitely not just think, I know that you can do this without the degree, right? So you
right.
can teach yourself if you're disciplined enough to kind of figure out what courses you need to take, line them bad boys up, and then finish them, do your projects, your homework, and really submit that knowledge, then I think you're good to go. I think you're good to go.
I think software engineering is one of those one of those things in technology to where, for me, I'll speak from my experience. At first, I struggled. I've been in tech for 20 years, and it took me probably 20 years to even get to software engineering and feel comfortable. But my point is, I think the language that you're introduced to, that like for you was Java or C++, and you gravitated to it. Now, for me, the first language I was introduced to was Java, and I struggled like wholeheartedly with Java. But then I tried C++, wasn't so bad. I tried C, that was extremely hard. But then I finally got to Python, and it was like, oh, I got this. Okay, this is nothing, and now I can pick up other languages easier. So my question to you is, what language would you recommend for someone that wants to get into software engineering?
That's a tough one. It really depends on what you want to do, right? So if you want to be like a front end developer, then you don't go and learn Java, right? That's
Right.
not going to help you in that journey. So JavaScript would be what you learn if you want to be a front end developer. There's also back end jobs in JavaScript as well, but most of the enterprise type jobs are going to be in Java. So if you want like to do back end stuff, Java's a good choice. Um, Python, like you said, is probably the easiest to learn and get started. And just like you said, what I found is once you kind of get the hang of one language and understand what it is they're talking about and you're able to flow with it, then picking up another language isn't as bad, right? All of them kind of have the same um functions, right? So loops and conditionals and data structures, like all of them have this. They might call it a little something different in each of the languages. But once you learn those core functionalities in a programming language, it's just a matter of, okay, what's the syntax for doing this thing? Like that's the key of knowing, here's the problem I have to solve. What tools do I need? I need a condition and I need a loop, right? Which
Right.
loop? This one. Bet. And then it's just a matter of, okay, how do I write that in this language?
Right. 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 Thank you for that. Thank you for that. I got a question from K Reed 9. And I think this is a good question because with you having so many patents and just being busy with everything in life, what motivates your creativity?
I don't know. I don't know what motivates it. I feel like it's just a innate part of me. You know, I just really enjoy being creative, and I feel like I'm that way just kind of naturally. Um and maybe I just, you know what? One thing that I think comes off as creativity, and I might not even think it's so, um it's like when I'm coming up with some of the ideas, whether it be for a patent or just regular business ideas for the company, or for the product or anything like that. Because most of the people that I'm interacting with, I'm different from them, right? I
Right.
have a different upbringing. I have a different background. We don't do the same thing on weekend. Our lives are just very different.
Right.
It's very different, right?
Right.
So when presented with a problem, I think that my ideas are just like so unique and different because I just have such a different perspective. And they come off or get labeled as like creative or innovative when I think, oh, it's just because me and you don't think the same. That's why. And that was a hang up for me early in my career. Like, I was terrified of sharing my ideas. We would be sitting at like round tables, all white men and me. And maybe a white lady, maybe if I'm lucky, right? And so the problem is presented, and we're brainstorming, and everybody's like, oh, we should do this or we should do that. And the idea that I have, I'm thinking way left field. It sounds nothing like anything they're saying. So I'm not even going to present it because it must be stupid, right? Because I mean, I'm year one, year two. So I would just keep quiet. And I got my work done, but I got a bad review that year. And I was shocked. I'm thinking, why did I get a bad review? All my work was done. It was done either on time or ahead of schedule, never late. Like, why on earth would I get a bad review? And the reason they gave me is like, you don't show initiative, you're not speaking up in the meetings and stuff like that. So I'm like, wow, ain't this a blimp, right? So, okay, I guess I gotta share my little ideas in the meeting, and if they laugh, they laugh, but I can't get another bad review, right? So I started sharing these like goofy ideas, or what I thought was goofy, and people would be like, "Wow, like that's really innovative," or whatever. And then I started kind of getting my confidence and stuff, like, oh, y'all like that? Oh, I got plenty of ideas. So I think I use my difference as my superpower now, where it's like I have this different perspective, and I can bring that to the table. And that's why I try to tell companies all the time when they're acting like, oh, we gotta like hire for diversity or whatever, and they act like that's lowering the bar, or oh, that makes me a social justice warrior, or I'm running a business here, I'm not a charity. All of that is BS to me, because I tweeted this last weekend for Juneteenth to let the folks know, like, Black culture basically motivates all pop culture. If you look at any aspect of pop culture, you see Black influence there, right? People want to dress like us, they want to look like us, they want to talk like us. They're copying pretty much everything that we're doing, and running with it. So as a business who needs to sell to everyday people who essentially want to immerse themselves in the Black culture, why would you think that it's not a great idea to hire some Black folks who can basically influence your products so that they are marketable to a larger base, not just marketable to Black people? Because again, Everybody want Black culture. So
Yeah.
it's really marketable to everybody. It's cool and hip, right?
It definitely is cool and hip. My question is though, um, when it comes to us, we're talking about you being an inventor and us creating, getting into tech. What about us creating our own? As far as if you have these skills, I have these skills. At what point do we work together to create our own lane and not have to look for jobs? I know I may be taking this to another area, but I just wanted to know like your thoughts on, let's say, entrepreneurship in the tech space with Black people.
No, I think that's dope, and I think we need to definitely do more of that. I look at some of the Black businesses in the tech space, and the ones that immediately come to mind are the, like kind of charitable ones, like, you have Kimberly Bryan with Black Girls Code. Like, that's an amazing business that's much needed in, the tech space. I definitely think there's a lane for that. I want to see some other ones too. I want to see, like, for example, did you know Calendly is run by a Black
Yep,
person?
I
So
did.
that, yeah, so that's also, we need to be some more of that. I want to see some
Yeah,
more of that. Some more of that. Sherelle Dorsey actually runs the plug, and
she blowing up.
yeah, she has a list of like Black tech companies. So that was really good to see that. I definitely want to see some more of it, where it's not even like, oh, this is a Black run company or this for Black folks. No, like Calendly, if you ain't know, you didn't know. A lot of people don't know that, and that's fine with me. You know what I mean? Like, just put the products out there. But I love that idea of us kind of making the tech versus always just kind of trying to find our way into somebody's door and sit at somebody's table. Like, make your own table. I'm with it.
True
I'm with
story.
it.
True story. True story.
Yeah.
Now, I'm gonna go back to something, and I saw this quote on your GitHub page about one thing I think is dope is that you meant well. One thing that I think that is dope about you is that your differences are your superpowers. I can relate with being different in the organization and kind of holding back who I am, because I didn't want to make other people uncomfortable, and I wanted my job. You know what I mean? Just playing it safe. What words of encouragement for those that want to be themselves and also keep their job? I would say.
Yeah. You know, I went to work at Twitter several years ago. And that was the first company that I'd ever worked for where I didn't feel like I had to put on a mask every day when I went to work. You
Mm-hmm.
know, I was able to authentically be myself there. And I never had a taste of that in corporate America. And now that I had a taste, I'm never going back. I'm never going back to, coming in and trying to, fit in or be someone that I'm not. Now, one thing, I'm going to be professional,
Of
right?
course.
So when you say be yourself, that don't mean, you up twerking on a desk because that's you or whatever. Like, let's be real. So I'm gonna be professional, but I'm also going to be unapologetically, authentically myself. And so outside of Twitter, going into another workforce where it's all white folks again, and I'm coming in being me, it still worked. I was nervous it wouldn't work, but it still worked just being myself. Not only did it work, I found not other people found that refreshing too. And I think that sometimes we get ourselves in trouble when we try to kind of assimilate or put on this mask and be someone that we're not. We're uncomfortable. Other people are uncomfortable, right? They can tell that we're not comfortable, so that makes others uncomfortable as well. And it just it's a tense situation, right? Verse, like I wouldn't talk to people. I wouldn't say, I asked them how their weekend was. I didn't care. It was like things that I don't care about, right? I'm never going hiking. Like, I don't care about your hiking trip, the stuff that I did, you probably don't care about. But so I just wouldn't talk to them. Right. And that also got me in trouble. People like, we don't really like working with her. It's like awkward, and that's not fair, but it is what it is. But once I started being myself, like, yeah, I went to a Lil Wayne concert this weekend, Oh, really? I love Wayne. Da, 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 da. And then you have a conversation or whatever. And so it's like, oh, okay. So I really could just be me, and that's fine, And so once I learned that, it became a lot easier to work. I feel way more comfortable. I'm switching my hair up. Sometimes I'm going in, it's up. Sometimes it's twisted, it's braided, it's loose, it's afro, it's whatever. I'm not switching up how I talk. None of it. I got my headphones on. People walk by, what you listening to? Meg. I got Meg Thee Stallion on. You heard her? They'd be like, no, oh, okay. Or whatever. And I feel a whole lot better about myself and going into work.
I love that. I love that. Same here. It took me a minute to get there. I think one reason is because I wasn't really comfortable in my knowledge. You know what I mean? The more confident I got in my learning, the more confident I got to express who I was. Because at some point when I started believing in myself, then it was like, you know what? This job don't work. Somebody going to accept me for me because I got the skills and I believe in me, and I'm bringing some work to this table. You feel what I'm saying? So, yeah. I got a question from Engineering Cannabis. He says, what are your thoughts on big data and the use of machine learning in application to numerous industries?
Big data, that is where it is. Sia Seko is in the audience. So if you are interested in big data analysis or anything like that, follow her for sure. I think that it's a very interesting space. They are looking for folks in that space, so it's definitely one you should look into. Sia did something really dope that I gotta like highlight, because I'm trying to get her on somebody's conference stage. But we were on Twitter talking smack as usual. And it's one night, it's late. I'm like, who I want to see on the verses? I want to see MJB versus Janet. I said Janet Jackson. So I was like, I think that'd be interesting. I think Mary could hold her own. I know Janet icon. I think Mary could hold her own, right? And so people start coming at me like, nah, da da da. And so people like, no, who should go against Mary should be Toni Braxton. I'm like, I don't see it. I'm like, Toni can't see Mary. So my girl Sia, who is a data analyst, she goes and uses natural language processing to like go through their catalogs of songs, Toni and Mary, and find like the perfect matchups. So, okay, Toni could see Mary in this song, and she did a whole little thread with the analysis on it. And to me, that was just so dope to show like how we can, use like tech in our culture for things that like we care about. And kind of, I'm just thinking like how she could get so many people interested in, big data and how you process it by using that as an analogy of how to get started,
That's super dope.
Isn't that dope?
That should be like a thing. Yeah.
Clap for everybody.
Hey, that should be like a thing. That should be like a website to where you
Don't you want to see the talk?
Yeah.
I want to see the talk.
Yeah, that'd be dope. Shout out. I put Sia's information in the chat
Thank
as well.
You.
For sure. Shout out to everybody that's tuning in. We've been on for about almost an hour. We had some technical difficulties in the beginning, but I'll edit all that out. I want to say thank you to Angie for joining us today. Thank you to the chat for all of your amazing questions. And we hope that you really were able to soak up this information. She shared a lot of great info, not just around patents, but also software engineering in her career. Um, One of the things that I wanted to ask you, and I meant to ask you this before, like you really worked for some great companies. As an intern, you said you interned at Bowling Twice and IBM. For how do you determine what company you're going to work for?
Mm, that's a good question. Oh, that's such a good question. And I love the way you phrased it, right? So many times we're looking at who's going to accept me, but you got to realize the power you have. You the prize. You are the prize. Who is worthy of having me work for them? And that's how I want all of us to look at this. But how I decide is like, okay, are they doing innovative things? I don't want to work for any, one that's stale, because I'm creative and I want to do creative and innovative cutting edge things. Also, how do you treat people, right? So I want to see like how do you treat everyone, your employees, but specifically, like the marginalized folks like myself, right? I don't want to go anywhere feeling uncomfortable. I don't want to deal with microaggressions every day. So I show up as my authentic self to interviews, and that's my test to see if you're worthy. How are you treating me, right? When you see my hair, I'm not straightening my hair. You getting it just like this. It might be in a ponytail. I don't care. That's how you getting it. I want to keep my vocabulary and my slang, all of that. But guess what? I also know my stuff.
Right.
So you cool with it or not? If you can't get past the appearance, then we don't need to talk, right? Because I'm not going to switch it up when I start working there. I also look at things like who did you select to interview me? Is it all white dudes? Right? So that tells me you had to pick a sample of like, your most trusted people,
Right.
or maybe even just the people I'm going to work with. But of those, you couldn't find like a woman.
Man.
You couldn't find a person of color. It just tells me something, right?
Right.
And a lot of times I don't bring it up to them. Some people do. That's okay. I just move on to the next interview or whatever. Like that's not the place for me. You know, for whatever reason.
That's something I never even thought about. Like, who did they pick as panelists to interview me? Like, who? Like, I never even thought about that. That's dope. Like, that's
It's
a dope
telling.
thing to think. Yeah,
It's
it really
telling, right?
is. Yeah.